Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Simplified. This is a show which was very much like the year 2022. Much groaning because it caused a lot of people to say, not this again. We've seen all this in the 2 years before. It was also like 2022 because it has incompetent men presiding over mediocrity. Like 2022, it has its moments of profundity and perhaps even wisdom. It was like 2022 because if you add up all the number of minutes of all the episodes till now, they work out to, you guessed it, not 2022, but let's hope something like that. Joining me on this episode are folks who acted as various parts of 2022 themselves. This year saw a funding winter, a crypto winter, and if you're in Mumbai, an actual winter. So we have a guy who keeps us cool at all points of time, Tony Sebastian.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That could have been all of you. That could have been any of you, actually.
Pretty much doing it on the fly, right? But 2022 is also like simplified because we pioneered doing one episode over multiple installments. And 2022 is basically 2020 version 3, right? So episode.
Wow. That's the profundity for this year taken care of right there. Next up, 2022 was also the year of everyone just getting out in their cars again, people starting to journal a lot, alcohol abstinence, and of course, record ice cream consumption. If only Yes Minister got a reboot, this painful analogy would be complete. Please welcome auto mogul, soon-to-be author, teetotaling frozen dessert connoisseur Narendra Shenoy.
Thank you.
And in 2022, we also saw the world opening up and people traveling again. So here we have someone who claims to have flown every single month in the last year. So much so that the security guard at Bangalore airport greets him with, "Arey sir, aap fir se." Okay, I might have exaggerated. He doesn't travel to Bangalore airport all that much. It's much quicker to get from Indiranagar to Andheri than by train rather than go via the airports. It's Srikeit Tadapalli.
Hello. What's up? Yeah,
I'm Chuck and I don't bother writing stupid intros for myself.
And like 2022, which brought welcome respite from all the bad things that were happening, COVID and recession and whatnot, is Chuck, right? So Chuck brings the respite from all the sand.
Yeah. Who got his first COVID in 2022? Anyway. So folks, Happy New Year. It's a fun new time. Nothing much has changed.
Have you started writing 2023 on your notebooks, or are you still writing 2022?
Oh, man. More than notebooks, deposit slips.
Deposit slips, yes.
Deposit slips. Wow.
It's the only place where we write anymore, man.
Full cash economy you're in, Srikeit. What is happening? Join us in 2023.
What is a deposit slip?
You need to put money into the bank, I guess.
Okay, you need money
check,
for that. Okay.
Even.
Check. Wow, that's quaint. I'll telegram you my response. And I don't need the app.
Small queue up to update your passbook every week.
My parents make me do that, so yes.
But of course, 2023 is going to be the year when Srikeit is going to update not his passbook, but his passport. But we will talk more about that at some point of time in the future. So, gents, I thought we would start the year by doing a little review of, not review as much as updates of all the things that we spoke about in the last year. And by last year, I largely mean the first half of last year, because I was looking through the episodes. It's not like you can update something that we spoke about in September or October in any case. So it's generally from mid-2021 to mid-2022, like some assessment here.
Sorry to jump in, but I just was amused sometime during the year. There was a LinkedIn post which said toffees have died because of UPI, right? And if you remember our live episode on what will happen to COVID, I think we had predicted that, this 1 rupee things would go away at that point in time. But it was a fake LinkedIn
post. It shattered my belief. All thought leaders. I mean, all the intelligent thought.
Yeah, that place where we all turn to when we need some wisdom and guidance in our life, LinkedIn. If that is fake.
But we are basically Simplified is way ahead of our time. So if you want to, if your New Year resolution is to write inspirational LinkedIn posts, we've done about 300 episodes from which you can pick.
By the way, I've seen...
The only thing that has really happened is that the Toffees coach is close to getting sacked. That is the Everton coach, that is Frank Lampard.
Oh,
Ouch. I saw in what might be the single most representative piece of technology, as in 2022 representative piece of technology, I saw a LinkedIn post chat GPT generator.
Oh, wow.
Or rather a chat GPT generator which gives you LinkedIn posts. I think it's perfect. I think that sums up. I think if you just thrown in crypto in there, actually the fact that crypto was not there sums up, makes it even more perfect for 2022. We will talk about it.
I think the gift of the year for men would have been a podcast mic, right? Because basically a lot of people have gotten into podcasting now. Srikeit finally has a mic, man. So I think
that is true.
Boom year for boom mics.
Oh, nice. Although that's not a boom mic, but anyway.
Yeah, whatever.
As Naren would say, he's a discondenser. Did you know that there is a fake account on Twitter of Narendra Shenoy, whose name is whose profile name is Discondenser or something. So if you're listening to this, thank you. You have to be listening to Simplified if you're making a fake account of Naren and calling it Discondenser.
This is a deep cut fan, man. Absolute deep cut fan. Yeah. Discondenser is brilliant.
Yeah.
Show
if
yourself,
you're that
whoever
guy,
you are.
please. Whoever you are. One of the things that we at Simplified want to do, that felt nice to say, is actually involve you, the dear listener / fan / person who is being made to listen to this against your will, possibly tied up to a prison chair somewhere. We want to involve you a little more. So if you would like to appear on the show and share your wisdom with our esteemed panel, then please write in. We genuinely want to have you on. Some of the best episodes we've done were when people have DM'd us and said, listen, that thing that you spoke about is absolute crap. And here's why, because I kind of work in the field. Hey, why don't you come onto the show and talk about it? So this is your opportunity, people.
Yeah. The phenomenon of falling in love with your captor is Stockholm Syndrome. I'm guessing we are the Malad West Syndrome.
Oh, that's nice. I like that. Yeah.
Malad West Syndrome is where people feel compelled to go and talk their deepest thing on a podcast.
Or
this
form
podcast,
fake account for Naren.
Form fake. Or secret life of Srikeit.in.
Yeah, that's what. So Srikeit has a website. Naren has a fake account. So Tony, you and I really need to step up our game this year if we are going to have fan art created.
Start a fake podcast in your name, Chuck. That's good around.
I think that will get a fair amount of traffic because nobody will doubt it with the number of podcasts that Chuck is already floating inside. So that would totally fly. But
somebody started then. I don't know what else to say. Anyway, so we will give updates about what happened in our own lives also somewhere along the course of these 2 episodes. We hope at the time of recording this particular sentence that we can restrict it to 2 episodes. Yes, there are still some of you who have PTSD from the never-ending 150th episode that we did. By the way, folks, somewhere in 2023, we will have a 300th episode.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Which we'll do live, no? Have we jumped the gun?
Yeah,
you might have jumped the gun, but we will do something related to that. So if something like that happens,
something might happen.
Yeah. Again, if you have ideas for what we can do, please let us know. We hope that it will be something more than Zoom thingy. Stay tuned to our social profiles. And one of the things that we might do, which we were considering, is actually have some kind of online community presence for Simplified for all 10 of us who actually listen to the show. Maybe a Discord. We don't know.
So reference for this, Chuck did a really nice year-end listening session for people from his other Telegram group, which Chuck and Bertie run, about a song a day. It's still called that?
Yeah. Chuck and Bertie song a day.
A song a day. So their Telegram group. So I think Chuck and many other people discovered the joys of Discord, and actually it was a pretty successful session.
Yeah.
Because of the total interaction. So stay tuned. I mean, we are not committing to anything. I mean, this is Simplified after all. But we will definitely try and experiment with it. And if we get enough listener interest, so write into us. You have our handles.
They're all in there. I think it's about time we made a email ID for Simplified, so we will create one and we will add it to the description of this episode. Simplified at gmail.com, hopefully, or simplified1@gmail.com or something, whatever. Simplified.
Someone's already hijacked it.
It's a hijacker. Then it should
That's
be
all.
Naren.
They're literally making it as you say right now, Chuck.
Oh, wow. Naren, what year did we start this? 2015 or 2016? No, it should be like that.
2016.
The year.
16.
Okay, anyway, we
16,
will figure out something.
yeah.
Something will be there in the notes of this. God, I can almost see your producer crying into
Yeah. New year old us.
New year olders. Yeah. By the way, Srikeit, and this is a piece of humor that is tailored for you. Suppose we end up starting this little community, and then a lot of people end up leaving that community, which is inevitable. What do we call them? Discord cutters.
Oh, man.
Ram.
No? Okay.
Wow.
Was that too over the top for you?
Why not?
Simplified,
Excellent.
streaming bad jokes into your ears since 2015 or 16. We don't remember ourselves.
16.
Let's get on with this show, gentlemen. We've already yammered on for
Excellent.
12 minutes without saying anything of substance. So let's start with
Also a tagline for Simplified.
I think eventually also tagline for Simplified will become the tagline for Simplified. That way it will be super meta. Okay, so we're going to update on a few things that we spoke about over the course of the year. So Srikeit, why don't you start off with the topic that everybody is talking about right now, or was talking about?
Yeah, you referenced the thing about like the first half of the year, although the one that I'm going to give the update about distinctly happened in the second half of the year. And I mean, it was an event that was traditionally supposed to happen in the first half of the year, but was pushed specifically for the Middle East to the second half of the year. And I'm talking about the Qatar World Cup, the Football World Cup in Qatar, which happened over November and December this year. So this is like an update of an overall. So there are a few updates of exactly how the World Cup happened. So the last episode that we did for the World Cup, where we discussed the technological innovations
and all that.
Yeah, the stadiums, the technological innovations, all of that stuff about Qatar. But here is where we are going to talk about a little bit of how the actual World Cup played itself out, right? So, I mean, there were a whole bunch of concerns from the protests to the way different minority communities' rights will be handled in the country, to how alcohol will be handled in the country, to exactly how even the football would be played. Like there seemed a distinct lack of, enthusiasm overall, which if I can say about how the Football World Cup would happen, right? And first is that the overall World Cup and the overall World Cup from a footballing point of view actually turned out pretty well. So when you talk about the number of, it was funny, the group stage actually had the most number of 0-0 draws, while on one hand, but the overall tournament had the most number of goals. So, we also saw probably the most exciting World Cup final in about at least 2 to 3 decades.
At least the last 40 minutes.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And fun fact, that's precisely where when Argentina went 2-0 up and I was watching the match and I did not prepare myself as one needs to do in their mid-30s, sleep in the afternoon so I can prepare myself for the match at night. I passed out at 60 minutes. I really did not see the entire awesome part of the World Cup live at all. So, I watched it.
We did the opposite. We had guests at home. So once Argentina went 2-0 up, we basically broke out into conversations till France scored the first goal again.
Yeah,
right? So they gave a nice considerate window for that to allow you to bond with friends.
My TV automatically, for some reason, my TV switched off around the. So I have this automatic timer thing where if I don't press a button, it automatically switches off. So the TV switched off exactly 3 minutes after. I mean, I fell asleep before that, but 3 minutes after France scored their first goal. So, I mean, it was quite poetic that way. But anyway, so a really exciting World Cup overall. And
I think it is the first World Cup in which nobody had a perfect record in the group stage, which I thought was pretty interesting. And there's a bragging point for Saudi Arabia for life that they defeated the eventual champions of the first games. I think again,
as somebody said, my favorite comment was in the end, cricket is the winner. That was my favorite.
No, but this is where also there was an interesting point about how, there was one article that I was reading which talked about how important home support is in actual matches, about how people feel more comfortable playing there. And I think despite all the controversy around Qatar and all that stuff, there is some merit to the fundamental argument that the Middle East needed a representation in some way in the World Cup, because I don't say this just for the Qatar team, but teams like Saudi Arabia, teams like Tunisia, Morocco that made it almost all the way to the semifinals. These teams had such enormous support and so much like pride in playing in pretty much their backyards in some way. Yeah. These teams actually had that boost of home support. Like I remember watching the Tunisia versus, I forget the European opponent, but the Tunisia versus, I think it was South Korea or some of the other, I think it was Tunisia versus Denmark. Yes, the Tunisia versus Denmark match. And it was amazing to watch how when Tunisia touched the ball, there was the cheers went through the roof, and the moment Denmark touched the ball, there were boos, ear-splitting boos all throughout. And I was like, wow, this is something that really makes a difference. And I mean, as a fan of Liverpool, I can vouch for the stadium support actually making a difference on the on-field.
Anfield
results. Yeah, well played. So yeah, I mean that was a big part of what happened. But overall, the couple of points that were that I also stood out were the whole thing about there was. One was about the LGBTQ rights, right? There were a lot of concerns about LGBTQ rights and stuff like that would happen, discrimination that would happen over there. Where there was one thing, so while there were no clear reports, and I have done a deep dive into this, there were no clear reports of overt discrimination against LGBTQ people and all that stuff. There were very clearly very clear movements. One thing was, obviously, since there were a lot of fans from the Middle East and a lot of people who came there were quite conservative and also quite homophobic in some way or the other. There were a lot of anti-homophobic, anti-gay chants in some way. And also the other part, which was the stadium, they were very thorough with checking, and all kinds of LGBTQ merchandise like rainbow flags and stuff like that were all confiscated and not allowed into the stadiums at all. So that kind of stuff wasn't just allowed, and it was a blanket ban, and they were all confiscated. Similarly, I mean, it even came down to Harry Kane. Harry Kane had this thing. Harry Kane, the English captain, captain of the England team, he had. Yeah, exactly. Very, very well. Yeah, your son is a Spurs fan. Yes. So he off Tottenham Hotspur and England. So he was quite invested in wearing One Love armband, which was a rainbow-colored One Love armband. And I mean, post which, I mean, he was firstly they said that you can't. Initially they were like, oh, these things will be banned from a tournament level. But later on, they kind of put pressures from the sponsors, and FIFA itself banned all the stuff. So FIFA itself was complicit, saying that we want to avoid all controversy. So eventually, he couldn't wear the band as well. So there was a very clear
group stage or something. There was someone tweeted this. Basically, there was no result that ended as 1-0, saying that FIFA has banned One Love as a result also.
Oh wow! Wow!
I mean, I get what you're saying. I mean, we all had that Qatar skepticism at some point. Oh, there must definitely have been corruption and whatever. And there's no doubt that there's some of that. But I don't know. I've kind of come around to the entire thing. It was kind of nice to see foreigners adopting Arab wear, the most obvious being Croatia, right? Messi. Because the flag also lends itself nicely to the costume. So I don't know. I mean, if you remove all the subtext and all that.
Messi wearing that the Qatari robe.
I'm not sure about wearing as much as forced it on, but I thought that was a little tasteless. But anyway, leaving that aside, I thought overall.
Yeah, go on.
As a symbol, I suppose as a symbol that works. But I don't know. Overall, I just look at it from the fans' perspective, right? I thought it was nice. I thought, people were celebrating with each other, people in Arab robes. I mean, people from obviously other countries wearing Arab robes, partaking in all that. I thought it was kind of nice. And like I read in a piece somewhere, I think Washington Post or something like that, as far as possible World Cup hosts go, there are a lot of options way, way, way worse than Qatar. If you had to bring football to a completely new location and to represent a region, and in many cases a complete religion that is under attack around the world, like you said in the beginning of this, Qatar is probably one of the best options that there is. Of course, there are lots of possibly shady things and things. Their human rights record isn't all that great, but hey, again, there are possibly worse options out there. I don't know. I've kind of warmed up to Qatar as a World Cup host, and I think with flashpoints like Trump and Qatar hosting the World Cup and a couple of other things, maybe I'm just getting old, but I'm also kind of like trying to, don't react too much in the moment. Let the whole thing get over. And if the world is still alive at the end of it, kind of see what happens. Because I'd actually like to see what the larger impact of this is later. You have a small country over here, an incredibly rich country, yes, which has reasonably successfully managed to pull off a very good World Cup. I'm sure FIFA will now be looking at options beyond the traditional footballing centers. It will be kind of interesting now to see what happens.
but that leads to actually our second topic in some way, very, very smoothly into our second topic.
So, before you move to that, the key question about the success of this particular World Cup is if the next World Cup calls it football or soccer.
In the US. But just one point to add, right? I think what this World Cup has like brought out extremely, well, for me at least, is the bias of the media that we consume, which is extremely Western based, right? And has no idea of how people live anywhere else, right? So India hosts so many World Cups in cricket all the time. It's going to probably host it more frequently now that ICC is practically run by BCCI, right? And like all of the narratives that we were getting were from a Western sensibility and had practically not too much basis in reality, right? So, I mean, if you have been a colonial power for ages and you've left countries battered and ravaged, then like don't stand on a pedestal and preach that now everyone has to live up to your level of morality, right? If you don't want to go to a country, don't go to it. But the football itself and what we saw of it on TV was spectacular, I thought, and like really, really well
There
done.
were also a lot of daggers drawn. So I know a few people who went and attended went to matches in the World Cup, physically went. And before that, everyone had, we had, during the league matches at least, we had heard about how beer was not allowed, and, it was like there are police all around and they would get arrested, this, that, and it turned out to be complete rubbish. All that they didn't allow was beer inside the stadium, which is like, which is common sense.
India, bro.
and that too, like what happened with that was like and protests were primarily from like English fans, like UK fans. And the irony of it is like alcohol isn't allowed inside UK stadiums either. Right? Because of the whole Hillsborough disaster that had happened a while ago, alcohol isn't allowed in those stadiums. But alcohol is part of the match day experience. Like people drink around the pubs and all that stuff, around the stadiums, and then go to the stadium while sloshed. So, but the thing is, here is where this particular thing said, like, I mean, while there are certain other concerns like LGBTQ concerns, women concerns, Jewish concerns, there were a lot of these concerns that happened around the World Cup. The main thing that was, the alcohol thing and a couple of other things were, you are visiting. I mean, the whole point of a World Cup being in a different country is that you are visiting different countries. You are different. You're going to a new country, and therefore you follow the rules of that country. You can't expect to have the same classical Western experience of being able to do whatever the hell you want to in any place that you go to. It's just about having that respect.
Yeah, well said. I mean, we say this for tourism all the time, right? When you're going to Maldives, respect, because and nobody puts up a fuss over there. I think that's a great point. And
So but on the flip side, the other aspect of this entire thing, and if you were to look at it from a macro point of view, what the biggest problem with this World Cup as such is that while Qatar pulled it off well, there is a huge element of sports washing. Now, Chuck, you talked about Messi maybe wearing it as a symbol or something like that. If you must, as a non-following football fan, you should be made aware that Messi and Mbappe, the two key protagonists of the final World Cup, both play for the same team.
Hey, I know all this. I also read Wikipedia.
And they are owned by Qatar.
So I know all this. Hello.
I didn't know.
Okay.
Are you doing a Rohit Sharma?
I don't know. I did some other. Is that how Rohit Sharma speaks?
Poor fellow.
Like an uncle arguing after an auto with pan in his mouth. Is that how Rohit Sharma speaks?
Yeah. kind of at some points.
And also Messi, the other point about Messi being that he has like previously been like a sponsor for an ambassador for the Saudis and all that stuff. So he has taken like millions of dollars doing all of this stuff. Like in fact, Qatar was also a sponsor for Barcelona when he was there.
Yeah.
And post that, he's again been here. So he has had legendary links to especially Qatar and the Middle East overall. And
Sorry, so just to refresh our memory, what is sports washing?
So yes, sorry, yeah, good point there. So sports washing basically is this phenomenon where countries, it could be countries, it could be individuals, it could be large organizations even, associating themselves with large sports entities. So it could be a tournament, it could be a team, it could be an individual, a very popular sporting individual or any of the other entities, to kind of like show themselves as sponsors and proponents of that particular sporting excellence, to hide all their misdeeds which they are doing to the way they acquire the money. So just like, if putting money, putting your money into charitable causes after earning it in an ill-begotten way can be a form of money laundering. Sports washing is one form of like how you kind of launder your image in some way. And also it's a way of gaining a lot of soft power, right? So Qatar now is on the map in various ways. Like even from a diplomatic perspective, they are the country that held the World Cup. Like they are now known throughout the whole world. Like, I mean, there are still countries in the world that cannot, like, there's a country like Eritrea in Africa, which a lot of people like, I generally use it as an example that there are people who don't know Eritrea is a country, but it exists and it's a country by itself. So I mean,
if I can just reprise one of my favorite lines from the third slip long ago, is that if you tell someone what is the Horn of Africa, they'll probably tell you it is a vuvuzela. But the Horn of Africa is actually Eritrea. So,
Eritrea. Yeah. Precisely.
Little bit of self-indulgence.
Very nice. That was the perfect way to cap it off. But so I mean, great way to toot your own Honda. So I mean, in this context, like one was about Messi and Mbappe also, and that was the biggest win for Qatar in a way, where the two of their biggest stars from their team kind of made it to the final and sparkled in the final. I mean, they are undoubtedly great athletes and great footballers, and them dominating the final. So even more so than the Qatar team doing anything in the World Cup, this was the biggest win for Qatar in their own way. And that ability to be able to do that. So, I mean, all the corruption that started about more than a decade ago, 12 years ago in 2010, has reached its final conclusion and has reaped its rewards right now. And now, as we are all even talking about it that way, right? It is the culmination of that sports washing that is now making us even talk positively about Qatar in any which way, right? Yeah. So that is a huge outcome of that. Some other angles about this sports washing thing that has happened is now Al Nassr, which is a Saudi Arabian team, has signed Cristiano Ronaldo, and for a annual salary of 200 million euros, which is the highest salary any footballer has ever made. And I mean, that's the GDP of a small country. So so again, Cristiano Ronaldo turned down a move to the US. He also threw a huge tantrum, and there was a huge controversy about how he left Manchester United in the time that he did. And so now, in fact, Al Nassr has like it's put them on a map in such a way that, like, I think they gained on Instagram in the time, within 48 hours of their announcement of signing Cristiano, their fan base, which was about some 100,000 or 200,000, grew to about a few million within like 48 hours the moment Cristiano Ronaldo signed. And now he's going to go there and play in that particular thing and like raise the profile of that overall thing. But yes,
it's like they paid 100 euros per fan. Yeah,
effectively, yes. So they've like pretty much bought their fans in that particular context. And
some marketing manager at a startup is like, "Hey, that's pretty cheap. We should."
Yeah, I know. It's like CPA. What is the CPA? Cost per acquisition, right? So the cost per acquisition turned out to be really good. The other angle being that the main, I was reading a BBC article, or I think it was let me reference that article properly. I think it's the New Republic. There is a great article on sports washing, the state of sports washing after 2022, which talked about how even there was, when we made the original sportswashing article, it was all about Newcastle United that had been bought by the Saudi investment fund, which is basically it's a sovereign Saudi investment fund. And at that time, Newcastle the way the sports washing is effectively being done is that you just basically fight off the initial, don't fight off, just kill it with silence in some way, right? Just allow the initial wave of criticism to fade away. And then just the sport talks by itself. So which is what Qatar did as well, where they addressed some of the concerns. They brought about whatever changes they needed to on a necessary level so that some of the major organizations wouldn't bother with that. And then the football took over, and then there were no questions after that because it's on the pitch, there's football, then it works.
Let
Newcastle United has done that.
Yes,
exactly. Newcastle United doing the same thing. They've been pumping the money slow. So it's rather than splash the cash and make a big name, just go under the radar and do it in a slow and sustainable way. Manchester City has done this over the last 15 years, where they've kind of slowly put in money and improved. You can complain about an Al Nassr spending 200 million euros a week on Cristiano Ronaldo as an obvious example of sports washing. How do you complain against Manchester City building the best academy for young footballers in Manchester with that money? Right. It's an academy for young footballers, and it's a great thing, and young footballers get a great opportunity. But at the end of the day, even that is sports washing, right? So that's what this, and now there's actually,
if you go down, right, if you take this to other aspects of life as well, eventually there is dirty money somewhere, right?
Precisely,
if you're being this, if you have this approach to life, then you can never use an Uber because that is also being funded by Saudi money distantly. So
we've done an episode called greenwashing, which is basically when brands use their CSR fund to proclaim they are actually greener than they are, or their products are more environmentally friendly than they are. So it exists in all spheres. But we are roughly 30 minutes in. Srikeit, the fun thing about Ronaldo joining was he basically said, I'm going to South Africa when he in Saudi Arabia.
Is that what he thought, by the way? Is that what he thought? And when we private jet pilot said, so we have landed in Riyadh.
If you're paying me 200 million euros per year, you take me where the hell ever you want, man.
But Srikeit, I want you to connect Ronaldo's potential debut back to something you said at the start, which is toffees. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Al Nassr potential debut. No, I'm lost here. No.
So basically, Ronaldo last April had a broken phone of an Everton fan. Everton is the
Everton fan, yes.
And basically, Al Nassr was all ready to parade Ronaldo in his debut, but FIFA said nothing doing. You're still banned for 2 matches, so please, all the tickets are sold out. You can play with your local players. So Ronaldo can't play for another 2 matches.
He can't play for the first 2 matches because he's still banned because of this nonsense that he did.
That's the best 200 million euros ever spent in that week.
But even so, imagine that fan, what he must be thinking right now. He's caused such seismic, mera phone tod diya par kya value mila bhai.
He's going to end up as a quiz question for years together.
For years to come. Exactly.
Super. Sports washing. Anything else? Any other?
One angle, just taking on the point that you talked about earlier about there's dirty money in everything, right? If I was to take a larger point of view on this, and if I was to look at capitalism in its own way, right?
Yeah.
In its own way, you take it that angle, when you think about something about what the Nazis did, they are the epitome of evil, right? They did this, they directly killed people.
But we got Fanta, right? as in the
or that, But I think in this way, democracy, I'd say capitalism, and by extension, obviously democracy, is a great way of kind of disaggregating suffering, right? So these children sewing soccer balls in China, bad. But cheap soccer balls for people to practice in Africa, good. Right. So where do you balance it out? Right. So that's exactly
Let this
how.
be a philosophical quandary for the listener. We will not answer.
I mean, something that we are obviously uncomfortable talking about, but this is practically what the IPL does, right? If you imagine Shane Warne coming to India in '98, where he would travel with canned Heinz beans, which is the only thing he would eat. Now, basically, everyone's queuing up for IPL left, right, and center, including Cameron Green, that, this, and the other. Whilst many might argue, I am not saying this, that we have one of not a very probably an autocratic kind of system with nepotism and some home minister son at the helm of BCCI and all of that, right? Dictating terms to the ICC. But we shan't talk about any of that. Let's talk about like China or Pakistan or some of those things.
or China or Chinaman. Okay, that was the update on the World Cup and sports washing, and it will be interesting to see how things go from there. Thank you for that, Srikeit Tadapalli, our sports correspondent. So right now, we'll take a small bit of a break, and then we'll come back and see what I have in stores for you. I mean, store for you. Haha, was that a hint? Maybe. Welcome back to Simplified. We made a joke.
As our producer throws in the towel. Welcome back.
We got all that. Welcome back to Simplified, where we are updating some of the episodes that we did last year and the year before. So before the break, Srikeit, our sports correspondent, told us about the World Cup. Interestingly, we said that we would update people about these topics, and we never even mentioned who won the World Cup. So if you don't know, please go and check the highlights.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, watch till the penalties.
And don't set your TV to switch off if you don't.
That's true. That's true.
So I think sometime in April or May, I had done an episode on the James Webb Telescope talking about what it was, why it was important and all that. And I thought I'd give a small update on that. I was reading up a little bit about that. Just thought I would, kind of do that. It is the biggest telescope of its kind to ever leave the planet, and it is supposed to be 7 times more powerful than the Hubble telescope, which has been the flag bearer, star capturer till now. And there were a couple of year-end articles which are absolutely glowing reviews. Check out these headlines. The Webb telescope is just getting started. The scientific results are coming in, and the $10 billion instrument is working even better than astronomers had dared to hope. This was from the usually pessimistic folks at the New York Times. The Verge said how the James Webb Telescope changed astronomy in its first year. The changed astronomy itself. The NYT article was actually pretty nice. It actually talked about, I think, sort of like an official conference that NASA was holding, where there were astronomers old and new who were coming in. Some of the old guys got really emotional about how the work that they started in the 1980s was coming to fruition like this, and how youngsters who were half or quarter their age were blazing through and destroying, or rather just taking over stuff that these guys had, set a few years back. So it's kind of poignant. At some level, I wish I understood this. I'd like to see okay, this is great. That's a really nice looking photo, probably a nice wallpaper, but why are you guys all crying about it? I wish I understood that. And if there is any listener out there who actually understands these things, please come on. We'd like to know, because
there should be a German word for this, no? Like the feeling that you have that you wish you understood a particular thing better.
Wow. Well,
it seems like ripe for some kind of German word.
Absolutely.
Right there.
There's probably somebody if there is somebody from the German version of Merriam-Webster who is listening to this, they're probably taking down notes. Srikeit and Fracken Flacken. Was it racist?
Wow.
It's okay.
Why do you sound Nazi?
It's in the context in which you've got German. And Chuck, I think you should stop drinking those mini Fantas. We can see you.
Yeah, I know.
So I think I just watched too much. I binge watched Dark back in 2020, and I think I haven't been able to let go of that very bad German accent ever since. As somebody said, who says the Germans don't have a sense of humor? Last time they gave the comedy award to Dark, haven't you seen? Never mind. Okay.
Excellent.
Okay, so what?
on the low expectations, right? One was that this particular thing was anyway 10-year delayed or something, right? And
10-year delay, a lot of billions of dollars.
Yeah,
I don't think
10x.
the expectations were low. It's just that people were finally just glad that it went out. I think the low expectations were more that we just hope that it works, because I read somewhere there were about 340 or 350 points of failure. Like if any one of those went wrong, the mission would be set back substantially, if not it wouldn't take off. And none of those
came. Historical precedent was that when the Hubble was launched and it reached there, they figured out that the lens was not focused correctly, and then they had to send satellite or a man mission or something to clean it up, which couldn't be done with this, right? If if it had not been focused correctly, you would have basically been dead. So
in contrast, the launch for this went so well and it used so little fuel that it has enough fuel for an additional 30 years or something like that. Basically, it seems to be doing everything right, and everybody who understands this thing seems to be very happy with how it's working out. So what are the things that it's managed to do in its first year? It's managed to capture it's managed to capture a photo of the most distant individual star that we have ever seen, the farthest distant galaxy ever. And it's doing a lot of things, right? I'm just going to read out one paragraph from The Verge, which actually sums this up quite nicely. One of the most pressing aim of the James Webb Telescope is one of the most ambitious projects in the recent history of astronomy, to look back at some of the first galaxies which formed when the universe was brand new. As light takes time to travel from its source to us here on Earth, by looking at extremely distant galaxies, astronomers can, in effect, look back in time to see the earliest galaxies forming more than 13 billion years ago. This, even if you don't understand the science and how they go about doing it and all that, I think is fairly impressive. I guess if you look back at things like this and, you learn about things like how stars are formed, how galaxies age, expansion of the universe, what the universe looks like so many years ago. I guess
if
overall that's
going to be an exam, I think the keyword you want to use is cosmic dawn. They're looking at cosmic dawn.
Cosmic dawn, yeah.
को पकड़ना मुश्किल नहीं, नामुमकिन था. But
Again, I did not expect to hear that from you.
Incredible.
All this happens because the telescope has the ability to, quote unquote, see infrared. The Webb telescope was designed to expose and explore these regions which represent the universe at just 1 billion years old, when the first galaxies began to bloom with stars. And also the telescope has managed to not just far off into the distant universe, but also tell us about things that are closer to home. It's taken some really nice pictures of Jupiter, Saturn, Mars as well. Now that people are thinking about colonizing the place, taken some really nice high-res photos of the place, which I suppose mean a lot to folks at NASA than just being pretty wallpapers. So that's I don't have as elaborate an update
before
as
we reach Mars. No.
Sorry?
Will we fix Twitter before we colonize Mars? Or sorry, Chuck, drink your Fanta.
Chuck is looking very melancholic at this point.
From Webb Telescope, we went to. I mean, it's kind of interesting, right? Like you have within the same year, you have possibly the greatest scientific achievement, arguably the greatest scientific achievement that has ever happened in the launch of this telescope, and the richest man on earth taking over Twitter and doing whatever. But we will not talk about that. We will not talk about it. We will not talk about it.
It's
an interesting juxtaposition.
It's like there are the greatest technological achievement that humans have made is been shot out of Earth, and there are things that need to be shot out of Earth that are still here.
I think that's profound. I don't have too much else because my update is not as long as Srikait's, but arguably I gave you more words to use in your upcoming science exam.
More protein.
Sorry, protein.
Yeah,
protein.
There's all meat in your sandwich. Or
are you saying Srikeit is all carbs?
No.
I'll take that, dude. I'll take it.
It was a nice vada pav. And given
I don't know if you want to discuss anything else on the telescope, because this is not stuff that you can faff around.
But I think Naren should tell us about the infrared / redshift and all of the science behind it.
Yeah, so it's that Doppler effect thing. So the further something is going away from you, the lower it goes in frequency. And in the light spectrum, red is lower in frequency than visible. So they can measure how much the shift is and decide how fast that object is moving away. One of the amazing things that they found out, is not so amazing now since everyone knows about it, is that the universe is expanding at an ever increasing rate. So there are...
We didn't
just
know
like
that
my
before.
waist size.
We didn't know that before.
Oh no, initially Einstein and all didn't know it. Einstein, of course I knew it, but Einstein didn't. So,
and Naren tried very hard to tell Einstein. All the way from Archimedes, he was trying to tell, nobody listened.
Yeah.
Okay, so
That's about what I know about.
And I think that's more than enough. Let's not pretend that we know rocket science more than
we are ultra crepidarians after all.
Yeah.
Hey, there is one Qatar joke that I have too. So actually, it's not Qatar, not Qatar the country. It's Qatar, right? So this I read it a long time ago. So when you were saying Qatar, it reminded me of that. That's why I'm bringing up the joke. So who's the greatest surgeon in the world? I think it appears in one of these Richard Gordon books. So who's the greatest surgeon in the world? So these guys are like, Sir Lancelot Spratt, this, that. No. The greatest surgeon in the world is Sir Francis Drake. He circumcised the globe with a 40-foot cutter.
Oh, wow. Okay.
No, but actually I have a close friend. Who actually did this. I mean, one of his big advertising claims to fame. He's a copywriter. And one of his great advertising claims to fame were for one of the very famous airline brands, who shall not be named. He did an they started running direct flights to Qatar at one point of time. And this particular airline is very famous for its single line copy ads. And he wrote basically the ad for it was, there is this queue. I think the image was a queue to go there, and he was like, "Aap Qatar mein hai," or something like that. So I mean, he started his advertising career with a pun, pretty much.
Well done.
So
now that we have given updates on two of the things that we have spoken about over the year, and you will hear updates from an episode each from Tony and Naren next week. I thought we would give updates about ourselves. So, gentlemen, how have your 2022s been? And I mean Tony and Naren for that. I think Srikeit and I have done our talking for this episode.
My 2022 has been...
it's not anymore.
Was. So, topsy-turvy. I went off for a couple of vacations in the middle of the year. And when I came back... That was the topsy part, I hope. Yeah, that's the topsy. The turvy part was I got myself my annual checkup. And I found that all my numbers were... anyone looking at my numbers would say that this guy has 6 months to live. Blood sugar through the roof. I'm not saying I'm exaggerating, but it's pretty bad. Yeah. So I was told to go and see a diabetologist, but instead I went and saw Amit Verma. And Amit Verma told me...
Wow! Did not expect that.
So he told me
that... diabetologist was unseen and Amit Verma was seen.
Seen.
Wow. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Wow. Too good.
So he pointed me to a number of interesting podcasts and books which show that diabetes, type 2 diabetes is reversible. And you have to do a lot of, so basically you have to fast. And I've been intermittent fasting, and now I'm on something called 1 meal a day. And the damn thing does reverse. It is gone. It is gone. Whoa. It is just gone.
Okay.
Yeah. So
what is gone? Amit?
This is not turvy. This is
it's not actually turvy. It's got a happy ending. But what's gone is the diabetes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah. Well done. Congrats.
Yeah.
So it was.
So I just wanted everyone to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone who has diabetes, please have a good look at the literature and the resources available out there. If you do it right, you can actually reverse type 2 diabetes. That was my learning for this year. Very
intermittent fasting and
also
OMAD.
Consult a doctor, please.
Intermittent fasting and OMAD.
Or Amit Verma.
Or Amit Verma.
No, I mean,
the only problem is he might give you advice over 3 hours, but
No, the culmination
you're
of all
lucky.
this is, incidentally, today my dad, who is in Ernakulam, is actually consulting with Abby Phillips, who was on the
he's
who's the
amazing.
liver
Abby
doctor
Phillips
on
is
Twitter.
just amazing guy. Yeah, just amazing.
Yeah.
Sorry, who is Abby Phillips?
Don't know.
He's
He's the liver doctor.
He's called a
on
liver
Twitter.
doctor.
Oh, the liver doctor.
Yeah.
Okay. He's Mallume.
Oh.
Okay.
He's an actual doctor, and basically calls out bullshit of
That I've
alternative
seen. I know
medicine
the liver
and all of
doctor. I
that.
didn't know he was this guy.
But
wow.
also he does like pioneering research work and has published 165 papers. I think the broad sort of takeaway here is that don't go listening to podcasts for medical advice, but like consult a doctor who takes a time out to tell you about other changes that you can make, like beyond.
Fully agree, and there is a point which just literally has happened in this year, in the 7 days of this year, 6 days of this year, is that there was another episode that we did last year was about American football, and what happened is one of the American football games between the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals, there was a football player who got a hit on his chest in between his heart rhythms, and that's the medical theory, the prevalent medical theory, and he suffered a cardiac arrest on the field, which is surprisingly for a full contact sport like American football never happened before. Like no football player has ever gotten like that serious. Like his heart stopped on the field and they had to give him CPR. And he's still critical. I mean, they've resuscitated him, but he's still critical in the hospital and all that stuff. But the point that was related to what you were saying is that obviously the moment this thing happened, this fact that this thing had never happened in American football before became massive fodder for all the vaccine conspiracy theorists saying that, never happened before in American football, which is a full contact sport. And now all these guys have taken vaccines and that's why they're collapsing on the field and all that stuff. So, I mean, and the thing is, unfortunately, the US being the US, this actually took off quite a bit and became a big thing on Twitter and people talking about it and the right-wing circles talking about it. So just reiterating on that angle, if you need medical advice, like the last place you should go is Twitter. The second last place is podcasts. And the only place really is go to doctors, please.
Tony, your turn.
Yeah. I mean, I think I should start from there because last year I ended saying I gotten put on a lot of weight. And obviously I took my own panel of blood tests, which I like to look at. Most commonly the liver function test because I've had a bad result previously. And again, it took me about 8 to 12 weeks to reverse those parameters. Basically, I think, that's also the time when we did that calorie jamboree episode. So if this is a roundup, maybe you want to go back and listen to it. I have since put on about 3-4 kilos, which I know I will lose, but at least I figured out how to do it and also consulting a doctor, etc. Right? So, but other than that, I think it's been a pretty interesting year. On New Year's Day itself, I was not particularly thrilled about what the year was like. But when I look back, there's a bunch of stuff that has happened, including getting a pet dog, which long-time friends of mine, like you guys know that I was, mortally afraid of all animals in general. But we got a dog and then realized we're also about going to have a second baby in March, which meant that the dog pretty much became my responsibility and is still around. So I'm counting that as a win, right? We have a very amazing picture from, I think, about 6-7 years ago, where with Tony sitting on a chair with a cat, with one of Chuck's cats on his lap, with being extremely uncomfortable about it. So this is massive growth.
One thing I would recommend, I use this, and you guys know this because every time we meet up, I end up doing this. I use this app called 1 second every day. Basically, you take a video of 1 second every day. It could be a small moment, it could be a concert that you go for, something big, etc. And the reason I really like it is at the end of the year or some points during the year, you look back and you actually realize that these smaller moments that actually make life nicer in some way. In fact, I discovered this on a TED Talk, which the founder of this app spoke about. It's kind of nice to go back and look at all these small things. I think Amit said this in one of when he came on to Getting Meta, he's like, what do you want your average day in your, when you're thinking of what your future should be, think about what an average day should be rather than an outsized day, right? Rather than thinking about the award that you're going to win or the day your book is published. Think about what your regular ordinary day is going to be, and that's what you're going to want to work towards. And I thought that was very profound advice. So I think the 1 second everyday app is something that I recommend to all friends during New Year time, and I think everyone should give it a shot. It's quite nice. So yeah, nice stuff. Srikeit and I will give our updates next time.
Yeah.
And
other than it, just if I can quickly plug the other podcast that we started.
Please do. Yes, that's another major thing for you. Yeah, I was surprised you didn't start with that.
Which is basically like sort of figuring out now that I'm mostly working from home, how can you sort of, catch up more with friends who you discuss cricket with a lot. And then we ended up starting a podcast. Obviously, thanks a lot to Simplified because we knew how to do it. Because like 2019, when we tried it, it was a disaster in some senses, right? But then it's gone on for 52 episodes now. We've had 25 different voices on the podcast, including Chuck. Hopefully soon, Srikeit and Naren.
I forgot I was a guest on it. I completely forgot.
We've had a podcast which was 50% Indians, 50% Pakistan fans. So all sorts of interesting stuff, right? So it is called Bits and Pieces, the friendliest cricket podcast. If you want to check that out,
And if there's anyone over here who and needlessly long convoluted intros that I do for Simplified once in a while are completely inspired by Tony's insane intros that he does for Bits and Pieces. So even if you're not a cricket fan, you should check it out just for that.
Yeah, if you're checking out one episode, I'd say check out episode 28, The Umpire Strikes Back from Bits and Pieces. Pretty long update.
Congratulations on that. I think that is a good one.
Yeah, and just to, since we're on plugs, I think from my side, I want to give a plug for Chuck's podcast, actually, The Origin of Things, which is, generally Origin of Things over the last year has been like pretty phenomenal. And it's actually, since after listening to it, the one thing that I've always used for the way I heard it by Micro as a introduction to podcast to a lot of people. But if you want to hear Indian voices and some interesting topics that might be wide ranging across sports, across personalities, across music and stuff like that, and a short podcast that you can kind of do, I think Chuck does a phenomenal job with the Origin of.
And the season is all about music and songs. So hopefully you'll find your favorite song ka origin over there.
Look at us pretending like Simplified has more listeners than Toot.
Or bits and pieces. But hey, we can be proud of what Simplified has done. We have birthed two incredible podcasts. One is Bits and Pieces, and the other, of course, is The Seen and the Unseen. So,
yes,
that is a story.
We will always be part of that origin story. Whenever the motion picture happens, they will have to get us.
They will have to get us, right?
Yeah, we should do that. I forget the Silicon Valley guy's name. What is his name?
Richard Hendricks.
Aviato.
Yeah.
Aviato.
Yeah, that's what you remember.
Erlich Bachman's thing of
Erlich Bachman.
10% stake because you stay in my house. Same way any podcast birthed from Simplified. Host 10%.
We are the Erlich Bachman of podcasts.
What's sadder to think is that The Seen and the Unseen is a Pied Piper of podcasts. If you've seen Silicon Valley. Decentralized open. So anyway, I think it's time we use the word decentralized. We've used the word decentralized. So before we say the dreaded C word, I think we should bring this to a close. Next week, we will update you more topics and lives and what plans we have for Simplified, hopefully. But yes, everything that Srikeit said in the beginning, maybe a Discord. But yes, one thing we definitely want you guys to do is write into us. Tell us how you would like to be part of Simplified, what you'd like us to do. If you want to be a guest on the show, please come.
We purposely, in fact, we make it a point, we purposely say inaccurate semi-accurate things so that we provoke you to come on the podcast and correct us.
Yes, correct.
So please do take the bait.
Naren,
and
please sign.
You can take us away.
It was a great episode. Stay safe.
This was a tough one.
Boys played well.
Boys played well. Stay safe, stay updated, and stay simplified.